Okay, so you took some time to scan lines 3 and 4, and I hope you had an easy time with the third line, which is your standard iambic pentameter. Upon those boughs which shake against the cold. But the fourth line, as you probably found out, was a little bit tricky. Listen and see if you can hear the meter when I read it aloud and overemphasize the stress. Bare, ruined choirs, where late the sweet birds sang. Was it a little easier that time? Let's scan it together. Bare, ruined choirs, where late the sweet birds sang. And let's identify the meter. The first foot has 2 consecutive stressed syllables. Do you remember what that foot is called? A spondee. Our second foot is, of course, the iamb, unstressed followed by stressed. And then you'll see that there are 1, 2 more iambs that follow. And then finally, another spondee. So how many feet do we have in total? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we could say that this is iambic pentameter, but it starts and ends with spondees. Why? Why did Shakespeare, who is a master sonneteer and a master at writing iambic pentameter, mix it up in the fourth line of his sonnet? Well, sometimes variations from the form are almost as important as the form itself. When a poet writes in iambic pentameter and then strays from that meter, the poet is asking the reader to pay attention. And it is the reader's responsibility to figure out why. What am I supposed to be paying attention to? What is the poet trying to tell me? And one of the things we can look at is the structure of the poem at that point where there's a variation from the meter. So let's look again at the structure of the English sonnet and the Italian sonnet. So on the left, you have your Italian sonnet. It's 2-part structure, an octave followed by a sestet. And right here, where the sonnet shifts from its octave to its sestet, is something called the volta. And volta means turn. And there is a turn or shift in the narrative or the tone of the poem at this point. In an English sonnet, the volta is between the second quatrain and the third quatrain, or in a Shakespearean sonnet, the volta or turn is following the third quatrain and before the second couplet. So what is this turn or shift? Let's look again. Here's the English sonnet and its structure. The first quatrain is where the poet establishes an argument or a theme. In the second quatrain, the poet develops that argument or theme, and then turns the argument or theme and starts to conclude the argument or take an alternate stance or look at the theme in a different, from a different perspective and moves the poem toward resolution. Now again, Shakespeare's sonnets are structured slightly differently than the English sonnet. In his first quatrain, he will also establish an argument or theme, but in the second quatrain, we'll use an example or more detail to elaborate the development of that argument or theme, and then continue the elaboration in quatrain 3, providing perhaps a second example. And then turn his argument and move toward resolution, which occurs in that concluding couplet. Okay, and to conclude, let's just look at some of the specific sonnet conventions that you will find. Once again, these conventions were developed by Petrarch, and you'll also hear them referred to as Petrarchan conventions. The theme of many sonnets is love, and the poet will talk about love at first sight. The poet will talk about how his love and poetry will outlive the poet and his beloved. The poet speaks of love in terms of pain because it is unrequited, it's unreturned by the beloved. And the poet uses elaborate conceits to describe his love for his beloved. And many of these conceits have to do with religion. The poet is a pilgrim. His beloved is the Virgin Mary, or a statue in a church that he worships. Also, war is a common conceit in sonnet. The lover is embattled. The lover is wounded in this fight for his beloved's favor. And the blazon, which mentioned earlier, is a catalog of the beloved's physical attributes. And the poet uses simile and metaphor and hyperbole to elaborately describe his beloved's physical attributes. Please take a few moments before you turn off the slideshow to review the terms. These are terms that you'll want to be quite familiar with and comfortable using before you come to class tomorrow. And finally, I just want to lead you to this link here, which is to the University of Virginia's English department. It has a great prosody practice tutorial, and this link will bring you directly to Shakespeare's Sonnet 73, so you can practice working with the meter of the sonnet we used in this slideshow. So I hope you know loads more about the sonnet than you did before this slideshow, and of course, as usual, if you have any questions, please email me or visit the class wiki to find some additional practice and also log any questions that remain. Thanks. We'll see you tomorrow.